Test, test. I'd like to welcome everyone to the August 6, 2025 Cottonwood Heights City Planning Commission business session. Before we get started, are there any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest to disclose?
No.
Seeing none, we'll continue. Before we do, though, is Commissioner Shelton on the line? But he's there. Perfect. Okay, thank you.
I'm here. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Thank you. We will start off with general public comment. This is for an item not on the agenda. Do we have anyone here for general public comment? Seeing none, I will close the general public comment period. The first item, business item on the agenda is project CUP-25-00-011, public hearing and potential action on a request by Brent Johnson on behalf of the Journey Master Association, the Community HOA, to amend the community planned unit development rules regarding some accessory structure setbacks. This application was noticed as PUD 25001. The application type is technically a conditional use permit. As such, the application has been renamed CUP-25-001. That is the introduction of the item. Maverick, I don't know unless we want to, if you would like to give an abbreviated overview of the project. I don't think quite the level of detail you did in the work session, but just an overview would be great. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so the CUP-25-011, the background is this applicant is required to amend to the original PUD approved for the Germany PUD-14-001. And during the PUD, when they submit this kind of application, they focus on like a main house setback things, and they get a special approved for reduce their setback for their side yard, rear yard. Basically, it depends on different lot. They get a special approved for each lot, like a side yard 5 foot, rear yard 10 foot. Those kind of different setback required. But during that CUP time, the builder doesn't mention anything about the accessory building or like shed, pergola in that area. And since the project's done, most of the owners start like build a pergola or shed, anything like accessory building in their backyards. And for the city code and building code is any structure like smaller than 200 square feet, you don't need to submit any building permit, but you still need to follow the zoning code and most of the code required. And after that, like some residents start feeling like, start reporting Access City if they allowed to do it, and find out, a lot of kind of structures now not meet the current codes require. So the code enforcement can still like enforce this case, and until the HOA they come talk to city, is that possible to do this amendment to change the setback required for this PUD area, just because the first resident don't know, they have to follow this rule. And the second thing is that during the PUD, there's nothing mentioned about the accessory building. So during the July 16, 2025 meeting, our planner, Ian Harris, gave the basic presentation about the background and his review. And during that time, it recommended it's like, approve for this CUP required. But all the commissioners have some concern and question for the building and the fire codes. So we do more research and a meeting with the applicant and the building department and get the answer and keep this continue for this meeting. So this is the purpose of this memo, just like I mentioned, like just follow up from last meeting. So here's the 3 concerns that Commissioner bring the last time. First is like, is it include the shed or just the pergola things? And also the second question about the fire codes or building code is this reduced setback gonna meet the fire and building code or any like a safety issue or concern? And the third question about the fairness to the other R1A zones within the Germany area. So after we meet with the applicant and the other fire and building department, applicant decided to remove the shed from this CUP application, now only focus on the open air structure like a pergola and a gazebo. And fire departments, they say since there's no footing and foundation or any walls are located in the side yard area for the safety issue, building fire department is okay to let them reduce the setback. And also, fire department also mentioned the fire pad or any gas pad are not allowed under the gazebo and pergola for the safety. And building department said if this zoning meet all the zoning code, they have no problem to let the applicant reduce the 6-foot setback to 0 between the two structures. But building department say the structure being at the 5-foot setback will allow 25% open that for the firewalls unprotected, but any structure less than keep the minimum 3 feet setback, no opening will be allowed. And the third question about like the fairness to the other R1A zone or not. So the staff do some research, basically because the PUD, this Germany, most of their lot size is smaller than the regular R1A zone lot required. The regular R1A zone lot size required is 8,000 square foot, but on the average in the Germany area is around just like 5,000 to 6,000. So they are smaller than the other regular R1A's lot coverage. So I think this kind of can be a reasonable things to let them reduce the setback. So the proposed update is like this application only focus on the gazebo and pergola, only the open air structures. And the shed and other enclosed accessory building are not removed from this projects. And so now the city standard for the minimum 3 feet required for the accessory buildings, 3 feet minimum is the minimum required. For the proposed, the applicant proposed to change to minimum is 5 feet setback in the side yard and rear yard from the property line. And the city standard for the setback between two structure is the minimum 6 feet is kind of required. And the proposed is remove the minimum 6 feet distance between two structures. And after we meet with the applicant and the fire and building department, the city staff recommended just approve this project with no additional conditions.
Great, thank you. We'll have if the applicant would like to come forward.
Okay. I thought everybody could hear me anyway. I think what I'd like to start with is just to give a little more background. We've had some turnover with city staff. We had Mike Johnson here. We were dealing with Ian, and now I've talked to Maverick. I've probably been in about 7 different meetings with city staff with our goal to really make sure that everything we did was so closely aligned with what was already allowed within city guidelines. We were very concerned that there would be things that there were structures that were built in our community that weren't in compliance. And so all we were doing by attempting to amend this is not to go significantly out of bounds on what's already allowed, but to refine what's already allowed and just streamline it for our smaller lot sizes. And Maverick, if you wouldn't mind, or somebody wouldn't mind pulling up sheet 5 of the application, I think it's important just to look at the diagram that we have for accessory building structures and really look at the setbacks. And I want to share a little more information with you. You may have it in front of you, but he can pull it up on the screen. But really, what the issue we have in our community is the structures themselves are allowed to be within 3 feet. And really what most owners that live in the community went through is they would see that as long as their structure was under 120 square feet, it didn't exceed 11 feet in height, and it had no electricity in it, for the most part, most people thought that meant they didn't need a building permit. And then they also saw this diagram that shared that you only had to be 3 feet away from the rear property line to also be in compliance. So I have folks that live in the community that are 6 feet away from their house. They're 3 feet away from the rear fence line. And the document that is now posted on the city website, which looks like this, it's not this one, but this is on the city website right now. This was actually handed to me in one of my first meetings. And what it talks about, it says walls that are 5 feet or less from the property line must have a minimum 1 hour fire resistance rating. Now, if you went on the city website 2 months ago, you would not see that note on the same document that was there because the old document was posted there. So it started to make a little more sense to me. And when I brought that to Mike Johnson's attention, he immediately changed it out that day so that the correct one was in place. Now, I'm not taking away from owners' responsibility to submit plans to the city, but part of the reason we got here is people were confused, were not aware of the fire resistance rating. And as we started to create this standard that we could use on homes moving forward and bring existing homes into compliance, we were told very clearly that that needs to be, that the 3 foot fire resistance wall had to be put in place, which is why we're recommending the 5 foot. Now, I believe you made a very good point on that if we get within the addition I added about the 3 foot extension, that was another conversation I had with Mike Johnson that was allowed. I threw that into the documents really for clarity because I was informed that was allowed, not really thinking about that if somebody's within 3 feet, their drip line would be to the property line, which is not acceptable. So I think in that case, somebody was within 3 foot, I would say they can be no closer than only have a 1 foot extension in that case. But again, I go back to everything we're trying to do is to match the standards, match what fire was allowing. And then we're also trying to save as many of the structures that people have already built. But I want to be clear, I don't have a structure in my yard, so I don't have a dog in this fight. We're not trying to ask for any grandfathering in of structures that do not fit anything close to what's allowed under city code. If it's outside that, that's something where, we expect code enforcement to go in and have those structures removed because a lot of these people do not have permits. There are some folks that thought they were going through the process because they followed the document, they followed what they believed to be true, and I feel bad for them. Because I think there was no malintent there by them to do something that they knew was completely not allowed. I think they thought they were doing the right thing. I'm a home builder by trade, so for me, I know the first thing I do is I go to the city and I'm going to get a building permit. The general public sometimes misses that. So everything we're proposing here, again, and Maverick kind of reiterated, multiple meetings with James Short and Dave Bradley from building, and Dave Bradley from fire to go through and make sure that what we have protects the community, it's compliant with fire code. The only thing we're really asking for is a closer setback to the house. But again, I think when you look at the lot coverage rule of 50% between the structure and the accessory building, somebody still needs to be in conformance with that. So in the pre-meeting, I heard everyone's concern that you're opening up a Pandora's box here where you're allowing us to do something different than everybody else. I think for the most part, this checks every single box you have with the exception of one, which is the distance to the house. And again, fire has signed off on this, building has signed off on this. I will add a footnote to fire that when we talked to Dave Bradley, what he said was, there are some fire elements that could be under a structure, but it's really a case-by-case basis. And to me, what needs to happen for an owner in this, if you were to approve this, an owner needs to submit an application to the city, have it reviewed, pay the permit fee, have it be reviewed, have fire also review it, make sure it's in compliance, to make sure that whatever anyone does is safe, which is really the #1 goal we have in the community. A lot of these structures, I think somebody asked, kind of how did we get here? And that's a great question. There were Regal Homes, who was the builder there, had these structures built. There are 3 homes in the community that have these built on them, and they were model homes. So this was all happening while homes were being built, while the city was out inspecting them, while code enforcement was going through. Well before, I've lived in the neighborhood 3 years. This is what, a lot of this all happened well before my time, so I don't know exactly what happened. But we are now at a point where it happened, and I have 36 structures out there, some with permits, some that are very close to being in compliance with your approval of our recommendation, and there's some that are going to need to be removed, and we know that. And I, you know, if I feel bad for people if they bought a home and it had a structure on it, but to me, if you're a homeowner and you're buying a property and you have a structure in your yard, you probably ought to check and see if the person got a permit for it. And if they didn't, sorry, but as a property owner, that's your due diligence, and you have to figure that out. So again, I'm not going to apologize for anything that was done by people, because there are things there that should not be there. And depending on how this shakes out and what you decide to vote on, I mean, at some point, I'm going to have to lean on code enforcement for help here. And what started this and advanced us to have this hearing is somebody actually called code enforcement to complain, and they wanted a blanket complaint on all the houses. Code enforcement went to one house. That owner since removed it because there's no path for him. He was way too close to his fence line. He removed his structure. And at that point, code enforcement gave me a reprieve so I could go through and have this hearing. So we talked about fire. We've removed the sheds. I threw that in last time, not thinking it was a big deal. We can completely remove that. I understand. And I think for the most part, that don't need to keep beating a dead horse, but if you have any questions for me, I'm glad to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Thank you. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Now open it up to public comment. I have one comment form. Richard Herr. As a reminder, you have 3 minutes, and we keep it kind. And I'd say no cheering from the crowd, but there's.
Can I cheer for myself?
Okay, thank you.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your service. Thank you all for being here, and thank you guys for the job you do. I spoke last month about this and reviewing R18 over the last couple of weeks and talking to the fire department. I find out my structure is in compliance of the city. Some of the restrictions that Brent has said are less restrictive, closer to the primary structure. Hey, that's fine. But he failed to mention the fact that he's setting an 8-foot limit on the height, and which is more restrictive than the 14-foot limit in R18. So that would be the one area where my property gazebo would not be in compliance. So what I'm asking for is, if the structures in our neighborhood are in compliance with R18, that we should not be forced to comply with something more restrictive that the HOA has just arbitrarily decided to make it. Now, if the HOA wants to make something less restrictive, well, I got no problem with that. I don't think anybody would. So I appreciate Brent coming up and talking, maybe clarifying a little bit as far as the structure itself was well under the permit limit. And he had mentioned earlier that my structure was not our fire thing. I did talk to the fire department. It turns out it is, because it is metal. There's no plastic, there's no wood. It is a nice metal structure. So it is in compliance with that. Basically, moving forward, I have no problem with the HOA making new structures more restrictive. However, trying to retroactively do it to existing structures that are in compliance with R18, I think is a little bit of an overreach for the HOA. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment period. Now turn to fellow commissioners for deliberation or any further questions for staff.
I think we had a good discussion during our work session. My inclination is to feel favorably about this, but I do appreciate the suggestion that we don't want to be making exceptions too often, and what we do ought to be generally applicable rather than picking out individual neighborhoods to apply different rules to.
And for HOAs can make whatever rules they can, but the overriding rules will always be city standards, correct? Correct.
Yeah, so we have our city standards. HOAs can make additional, more restrictive covenants on their property, but they have to be recorded as part of the CCNRs for those properties. So yeah, they can always be more restrictive, but then it's a private enforcement issue there in that case.
Thank you. And then I had another question. The setback measurement for something like a pergola or pagoda, where does is it start from the post of the,
Yes, we measure from the footing or the post to the property line.
okay.
I'm really grateful that we're having this discussion because when we worked on some cleanup last fall, we didn't feel a need to drill down, and I think this might warrant some exceptional treatment, but I do think that it does require a text amendment for us to really feel comfortable. I mean, I think we saw it with the public comment and also with Commissioner Polson's comment. I think there may be some housekeeping. So my general feeling is that I would love to see this be initiated from the city council, that we see if there is some exceptional treatment for pergolas and pagodas, that we might be able to maybe change the rules a little bit, but make it citywide so that it's clear among all entities. That's kind of where I'm leaning, that we don't provide a different set of rules, especially in light of smaller lots. I'll stand by my comments from the work session.
I would agree with you.
Madam Chair, can I just make a
Yes,
quick
sorry.
comment? This was percolating during the discussion. I couldn't get it out because I wasn't sure what I was going to say, but I just wanted to read to you and just to give you something more to chew on. With the PUDs, the purpose and intent, it says it is the intent of this chapter to provide for innovative residential developments having harmony of design and variety of function by providing for greater flexibility in the design of buildings, yards, courts, and circulation than would otherwise be possible through the strict application of zoning district regulations. So just to think about it, PUDs, I mean, this is a PUD, it's got separate setbacks than an R18. It's got several exceptions to an R18. This might just be another one. Just something to think about. I'm fine either way. I just wanted to put that out there so that you're thinking about that this is a PUD overlay on this R18 property. So I'm fine either way. I just wanted to give you that.
Thank you for that. Other thoughts?
I'm wondering if we were to accept that and we say that it is for a PUD, then if somebody had a lot that was less than 8,000 feet and they're not under a PUD, then they wouldn't really have a case to make it for them.
Correct. They would have to follow the guidelines and setbacks of R18.
So then what we talked about earlier really wouldn't apply. I mean, that we ought not to do for this one because it would be then confusing for anybody else that had a smaller lot.
Correct.
Correct. I think we're saying we need to just have a blanket, a standard code applicable.
But my question also would be on that is if it's an R18, the eight to me says that in order to be under that, you better be very close to 8,000 square feet.
So in
And so
order to, in order
again,
to
you
go,
wouldn't have the argument that my lot is smaller.
right,
and
in
so
order
therefore-
to build in a standard R18, you have to have 8,000 square foot minimum lots. So
Oh.
the reason they're smaller is because they went through this PUD process for this
Correct.
overlay. So there shouldn't be, unless it's grandfathered in from Old County code or something else, there shouldn't be a lot in an R18 zone that's less than 8,000 square feet, unless they have a PUD on it.
We have to be careful with these PUDs too. Just it's not designed as a way to skirt the code. So it's meant to exactly what our city manager pointed out, that it's meant to allow creativity and flexibility, but not skirting safety issues or the rights of property owners generally. So the PUD is complicated and messy at times. So it's good that we're being circumspect about it, because making an exception is precedent setting.
So then the logic would be that if it's, as you said earlier, if 3 feet's okay here, then it ought to be everywhere. But then that would be a code change.
Right.
Correct.
That's what, and I believe that's what we're saying, is that the code should be changed. If it's okay here, it should be okay anywhere
So
in R18.
I guess we can see what the motion.
That is correct.
Are we ready for a motion?
I think unless there's any further discussion.
Well, in either case, I would make my point yet again, that if we have a 3-foot setback, we've got to address.
Yeah, I think that would have
and
to
that-
be
and we'd
part
need
of
to
the
modify,
revised code.
then would it need to put that modification either in the motion if we decided to approve, or leave it alone and let them take care of that when they change the code itself? I mean, that,
Right, that
Okay.
it's clearly something that needs to, yeah, no, I agree. It's a good point.
I move to deny project CUP-25-011 based on the finding that this would be precedent setting and would be better addressed as a text amendment in the code.
We have a motion by Commissioner Mills,
I'll second that.
Commissioner Polson, second. Any deliberation on the motion? No? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote. Commissioner Polson,
Aye.
Commissioner Mills,
Yes.
Commissioner Shelton,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
and Commissioner Anderson, yes. Okay, thank you. That wraps up that item. For clarification, Jared, is the next step to go to council with that request?
Yeah, so I'm going to add it tentatively to the August 19th meeting, and then we will discuss that with the mayor to make sure he's okay with that being on there, and then it should go on an agenda to at least discuss it in a work session. In
Perfect.
Direction there.
Okay, thank you. The next item is consent agenda for approval of July 16th, 2025 Planning Commission minutes. Is there any feedback on the minutes? No? Okay, seeing none. And go ahead with a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the July 16th, 2025 Planning Commission minutes.
Motion by Commissioner Polson,
I'll second that.
second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And before we adjourn, just one thing, our next meeting is September 3rd, 2025. Okay, now,
I move that we adjourn.
we have a motion by Commissioner Smith,
I'll second that.
Commissioner Polson second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.